Hello, this is Max.
This is Tony.
From Aerohertz, and today we're going to be reviewing the new 6th edition rulebook.
So this little puppy has a lot of interesting things it's going to go into it, that's gone into it, and we're going to cover them for you.
So we went to our local GW and picked this up for a good $90-something.
$97 Canadian.
So, there you go. It'll cost you roughly that. I don't know what it'll cost in the other countries. Might cost more depending on where you are. But this book is very big and very heavy. And all the pictures are in full color. Although some of them, the picture's a bit faded or blurry. The color doesn't match up to the picture.
Just mild distortions
and
like that.
And there's typos throughout the book.
Yeah, I've not thoroughly went through it. Yeah, I've not noticed those, but yeah, I've heard the same.
There's lots of misspellings of some simple words. Who knows? Maybe it's a misprint book. This one will be worth more. Who knows? All right. So from the beginning of the book, we will start a review of 6th edition, and we're going to compare it to the previous editions and what's changed, and essentially give a run through the game for a beginner who's going to be starting 6th edition.
So I guess we'll start off on some of the standard stuff that anyone knows. Movement phase, or just models here.
Well, we'll start with the models. And so, models page, which you would find on page 2 of the 6th edition rulebook. And not much has really changed from the previous editions. Everything seems to be more or less the same. That a model will have a weapon skill, ballistic skill, strength, toughness, wounds, initiative, attacks, leadership, and saves. And well, I'm not going to get too much into depth with these, so I think you can get the rulebook. Right? Yeah, you can get the rulebook.
Yeah.
So you're going to need some measuring devices and dice and
lots of dice.
Templates. Can't forget templates. The Assault on Black Reach ones they show here are pretty nice. They're pretty neat.
You got lots of that.
So the basic setup of the turn would have stayed the same as in the previous editions that I would have understood, which is the movement phase, the shooting phase, and the assault phase. I think I heard some rumors online that people were thinking that the assault phase was going to become first before the shooting phase.
Prior to the shooting, but that was mistaken.
So the moving phase. And the moving phase, you're able to move your units a certain amount of inches depending on what type of unit they are. If they're an infantry unit, they can generally move 6 inches. If they're a jump infantry, they can move 12 inches. If they're a beast, 12 inches.
Most things generally faster than infantry move 12 inches.
It's basically you're going to move 6 inches or 12 inches based off of what type of unit you are. You have to remain in unit coherency, which is within 2 inches of another model. So every model in your squad has to be within at least 2 inches of another model in the squad. There's a diagram showing that on page 11. The next phase is the shooting phase, and there's been a few changes to the shooting phase.
I.e., well, let's see, one of them would be being able to do something we've never been able to do before.
Which is you can move and shoot with heavy weapons. Now, some people are going to be saying, you could do that before if you had Relentless, and we're not talking about that, so shut up. Quiet. Yeah, you. Get out of here.
Hearing.
Alright. So, now that guy's gone. The weapons have stayed mainly the same. Pistols can shoot once. Rapid fire weapons can shoot twice at half their range and once at their full range. Assault weapons can move and shoot at full range, and heavy weapons, this is the big change, is that they can shoot if they stay stationary, or they can snapshot if they move. And the snapshot rule is going to be the big change in 6th edition compared to the previous editions of the game. And the snapshot rule, which can be found on page 13, is if a model is forced to make a snapshot move, or a snapshot shot, they have to roll their shots, but they can only hit on 6s, regardless of their ballistic skill. So, if you had a heavy bolter and you moved him in your squad of your Space Marines, he'd have to roll 6s to be able to hit with his shots. Now, another change from in 6th edition compared to 5th edition is that in 5th edition, if any model in your unit moved, the unit counted as moving and you couldn't fire the heavy bolter. Now it's on a model-by-model basis. So every model that moves only affects that model's shooting ability. And if a heavy bolter in your squad of Space Marines, let's say, stays stationary, that model can fire at their normal firing ability.
They can just remain relatively unharmed if they're shooting squad's movements. You could reposition them around a small area while he just stands there and lets your enemy have at it.
One of the things that I've noticed is that there's the run rule. Now, run was in the last edition, and it was a pretty nice addition to the game. I kind of liked how they made it so anything can run, not just fleet of foot could run. Yeah. But now I've noticed that running makes it so you can't assault in the assault phase. Now, I'm pretty sure it did that before, but there was fleet that let you
fleet
assault.
Change was it allowed you to assault after running.
And now fleet's been changed so that you can re-roll your running,
or get an extra dice or something like that.
And re-roll your charge range.
Re-roll dice.
Which is another thing we'll get to when we get into the assault phase. Rolling to wound has been kept the same. You roll a dice and match your strength against their toughness. And allocation, there have been some changes here, but it's been mainly simplified. I feel it's not as
lame in some respect.
Not as time consuming.
That too. Yes, allocating directly.
And one of the things they've added into the shooting phase, which I think this is probably one of Tony's favorite rules that we've come across, is the lookout sir rule, where if a character in the squad gets a wound allocated to him, a model in the squad can attempt the
lookout
sir, and jump into the way, or sacrifice themselves,
or be sacrificed by,
in some different way, to save the character's life. So I think it's on a 4
up normally.
On a roll of 4 or more, the model jumps in the way and intervenes and saves the day and sacrifices themselves and dies.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the funniest rules. And I'm wondering, do you think that this rule is going to be abused in tournaments?
Oh, well, let's think about it. Yes, think about trying to having a big squad of Space Marines together, and you've got all, your characters in your command squad, and they're all two up lookouts serving each other.
I think that we're going to be seeing a lot of players using this in tournaments and saving themselves from
losing their characters.
And, in regular play, it's fine. It's not the most ridiculous thing. It's saving your character. There's other things that we can address that will probably be broken in tournaments.
Much worse than that.
And so now we get into the assault phase. I'm going to skip some of the other rules in between because this is only going to be a rough run-through. We're not going to give you all the tidbits. You can get your own rule book for that.
Paid $90 for a reason.
So the change in this one is that in the assault phase, now there's random charge distance, and you roll 2d6 instead of
charging 6
inches or 12 inches, depending on what you were. Now you just roll on it, and it's random distance. This is going to be a real big damaging factor to the close combat-based armies like Tyranids or Space Wolves or Orcs. they're going to be taking a big hit because they're going to not know if they're going to be necessarily in range to be able to charge.
I mean, they will be able to try earlier than normal as well, but then there's also the chance that they could be right beside them and get like double ones or something and then not reach the guy 3 inches away.
And then that leads on to the next rule, which is Overwatch. Now, we've tried out a couple games with the new rules, and Tony got some very lucky Overwatch rules. Overwatch is essentially the snapshot rule that we've mentioned previously. If you weren't listening or forgot, go back and check out what the snapshot rule was. You perform a snapshot with all the units in your squad at the unit that is charging you. So when you're being charged, you get to get free shots at whoever is taking a charge at you. And I mean, they only hit on 6s.
But they're still all your weapons at their normal standard.
And that is devastating. So ranged armies are going to have a much more
flexible way to fight.
They're going to have a much easier time in games. They're going to be a much stronger army than they were before, compared to how close combat was a much more dominating force. If a ranged army was in close combat, it was done. Now close combat is a much less desirable thing to do if you're going to be shot at.
And especially if you've got the chance of trying to charge them, not even getting there and having been overwatched.
So another thing is that if someone is overwatched and you're charging and you're being shot by Overwatch, the models that get killed by the Overwatch will also affect your charge range. So now you have to take them off of the front instead of wherever you want. You have to come off the front row. So if your front row gets shot down by Overwatch, now you're an extra 2 to 4 inches away to the target, and now that 8 that you rolled in the charge, let's say, isn't making it, and you just got shot and didn't even get to charge. Now, one of the things that I really want to talk about, and I think that this is really neat, is that they've made the power weapons and force weapons all have different variations of effects depending on what it actually is on the model. I think that that's really neat. It kind of brings it back to being able to customize your model to having what you want and be able to give it to them instead of having them tell you what you can put onto the model.
I mean, it is really good, and like the only problem with that would be some people might not be so desirable with the weapons they already have. But after this point, with making anyone new, you can have whatever you want to have a much more flexible range of what your independent character is going to be like.
So a lot of these stats are kind of similar to, I think, what I've seen in old 2nd edition rulebooks, or looking at the Necromunda rulebook. A power sword uses the strength of a user and has AP 3, so it's able to take down the power armor units like Space Marines or Sisters.
Any troop's choice in the game will not be able to stand against that.
Then there's the power axe, which gives +1 strength and is AP 2, so it's able to take down the Terminators and all the AP 2 units, but it's unwieldy, which makes it attack last in close combat.
Yeah, unwieldy is one of their new special abilities for weapons, is insert all weapons with unwieldy hit last in close combat.
Then there's the power maul, which is kind of neat. It gives +2 strength. It's AP 4, so it's not going to be able to shred through some of the toughest units, but through most units in the game, it's going to be effective against. And it has an ability called Concussive, which is essentially the Thunderhammer's effects from the older editions of if you wound a unit for that model now strikes at initiative 1 until the next round of combat. Or until the end of the next round.
Yeah. And then they also made some weapons have another special, which is pretty much you have to have another one of the same weapon to be able to wield, to be able to get an extra attack from them.
The specialist weapon special rules, which applies to mainly power fists, power claws, lightning claws.
Things of that standard.
Thunderhammers. You need to have 2 of them to be able to get an extra attack. So a lot of the special rules have changed in 6th edition compared to the other ones.
Some got up, some got down, some of them completely changed all around.
So all of the battlefield roles that some of the units are going to be having are going to have major changes based off of what the rule used to do and they have, and now what the rule does. You're going to have to rethink your strategies. Models that have fleet, you're going to have to rethink if you have the ability to. You're not going to be able to run and charge them anymore. Models that had fearless, now they're not going to be taking those hits in close combat from losing a combat.
Yeah, they're not going to die so quickly again.
So things are going to be different. You're going to have to change your strategies based off the new rules. One of my favorite ones that we had in our games was the Hammer of Wrath special rule, which bikes and jet bikes and jump pack troops and things like that get, which is really, I think it's really neat. It's when they're charging, they get a initiative 10 attack at their strength value with no AP. So they're able to essentially use the Mandy Blaster.
Yeah, like the Striking Scorpions Mandy Blaster from 3rd edition.
3rd edition, where they just got an extra attack.
Before the fighting actually happened.
And that turns out to be really useful because bikes and assault marines turn out to be really expensive units that a lot of people don't want to take because they don't really prove as effective as some of the other units. And now with the new rules, they're going to be even less effective. So these rules kind of balance it out and give them a nice
give them a present for the fact that they got a downgrade.
Yeah, it gives them a nice advantage to balance out with the disadvantages they're going to be facing in the rules. Overwatch, just Overwatch, which would be very, very damaging. Characters are now much different than they were in the earlier editions. Your independent characters are now not going to be as protected as they were when you stick them into a squad. They are going to be just as vulnerable as every other guy because you have to take them the hits to the front row. So if you want to keep your captain in the front row, leading him there, he's going to be taking the hits for the squad. So characters are now just like any other guy. There's an attachment to a squad. They don't get special rules for riding bikes or for moving through cover. They get the Lookout Sir rule. So if you have a squad of characters that have attached to each other, one of the characters can jump in the way of a wound for another character, but you can't allocate this to multiple different characters.
You can't bounce it around and just stall the game.
The new psychic powers are really neat. There's a chart of 5.
There's 5 charts with 7 spells apiece.
So 35 psychic powers that are available to most of the armies in the game. And a lot of these are really neat. Some of them aren't as useful as some of the other ones, and there are some of them that you're going to go, like, that one's really nice and I want to have that one, but I can't have that one because I have to roll it randomly. And I think that Beasts of War did a video on this, so they do it more in depth, so you can watch that one. I'll put a link below in the description. And yeah, so I think that psychic powers are going to be a big change to the game, going to be a much bigger role.
They were made more important with getting a bunch of rules to what there's even like types of psychic powers. So yeah, they got a big upgrade and made more intricate.
Vehicles have had a major change, and based off of, we watched our pre-review of the rulebook while it was being pre-released. We addressed this. The hull points.
My enthusiasm was a little misplaced with these.
Vehicles in the game now have a new attribute, hull points, which is essentially the amount of glancing hits or penetrating hits that the vehicle is allowed to take unsaved. It's essentially the wounds for a vehicle. It's comparable to the structure points of the super heavies and titans and gargants of Apocalypse and in the Imperial Armor books. So now most vehicles have at least 2 hull points.
Yeah, 2 will be the minimum for something like a speeder or a buggy.
So what that would mean is that now vehicles are a little bit easier to kill and harder to kill. A squad of bolters, for example, could shoot at a land speeder and get a couple glancing hits, and the land speeder would be taken down. But now, if you shoot it with, let's say, a heavier weapon such as a missile launcher or a las cannon, and this is a las cannon who got really unlucky, mind you, and you get only one glancing hit or only one penetrating hit that doesn't do much, then you have to get a second shot onto it to actually take it down.
So you get another glancing or penetrating, that'll be iffy, considering the fact that now they remove one structure point based off of just getting one of d6.
Being glanced and being penetrated, as long as it's unsaved, which means you don't have a cover save or invulnerable save for the tank, will remove a hull point. And if you have 0 hull points,
you're wrecked.
You're dead. And I think there was something else.
Oh yeah, glancing hits now, they don't have any dice rolls to them. They do not weaken or cripple vehicles in any way. They have nothing to do on the d6 scale.
Glancing hits now just remove a hull point from the vehicle. And there's still the rolling a 6 and destroying a vehicle on the damage chart, but that's only on the penetrating hits now. Now, other than most of the rules which we've covered now, in this rulebook, there's lots of different artwork I'd like to cover. From the beginning, the first page has an amazing display of orcs and blood angels fighting. I believe you can see one of the blood angels' characters flying.
Oh yeah,
Astaroth the Grim.
Astaroth the Grim just coming down. I think there might be there's I think there's like a chaplain there somewhere in the front line. It's all awesome. Many pictures of this book, and because of the color, the quality's up so much. Here's another one.
One of the things this was my favorite was there was some sort of device or time chart or whatever this is. If you can tell me what this is in the comments below, that'd be awesome. I'd appreciate it. This is one of my favorite pieces of the book so far.
Very interesting picture.
And another one would be a battle between Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines. I can't really properly identify them.
Yeah, it's a pretty hectic battle. The colors are... They have colors, but not too many, so you can't really make out these two. But yeah, look at that picture. It's really nice, it's not?
And of course in the back there's lots of the models being painted by, I'm guessing, the heavy metal team?
Heavy metal team. They also have a showcase in Fiducia. They're showing some like actual other random people's works who just submitted them into contests.
And one of the last things that we're going to talk about in this video, because we're running out of time, is the Allies chart and the Allies matrix that we had in the last video.
Yeah, we mentioned this, but didn't really know what it was about.
So now, in games of 2,000 or more points, you're allowed to take a second detachment of allies, or a second detachment of your main force, to take a second force organization chart. And that's pretty neat. I think that a lot of people were doing that in the older editions, and they just kind of put it into the rules now.
Yeah, it's pretty much things like Apocalypse kind of got blended into the book to a degree.
So we have the Allies matrix here, which, as I'm going to agree with the guys from Beast of War, this is horrible. This is really hard to look through. It kind of reminds me of the types chart from the old Pokemon Red and Blue handbook.
I think periodic table myself.
Yeah, something like that. And so the Allies are going to add a really interesting concept to the game. I mean, add a lot of good narrative. It'll add a competitive attribute to the game, and it'll probably add a lot of fun. Now, overall, I think 6th edition is bringing it back to 2nd edition, and I'm enjoying it so far. It's simplifying it, so it should be easy for a newcomer to the game, and for the veterans of the game, they should probably find this pretty simple and easy to follow. It's been pretty good so far.
And there's one little thing that's come up in the book. It's a little thing that we want you to comment on below, actually. Now, the missile launcher, it's had an extra ammo put into the game. It's a Skyfire ammo. What would you think? Flak ammo?
they've added the flak missile, which is the anti-flyer missile. Now, in the missile's description, it just lists all three types: the crack, frag, and frack. And in the index, or in the appendix, where it's showing all the different weapons, it lists it in there as well. Now, some people are saying that because it's listing it there, that their Imperial Guard, or Sisters, or Chaos, or Space Marines now get this. And some people are saying that they don't get this because it's not in the Codex, or not in the errata, or the FAQ. Now, we want to know what you think, and put in the comments below. And if you like this video and you want to see more, press the like button. You can press the subscribe, which should be somewhere over here or here. I think there might be there.
Wherever we decide.
It's somewhere. I don't know.
In the spare space.
And thanks for watching. I'm Max.
I'm Tony.
And we're Arrowhearts. Happy wargaming.